Hi, and welcome to On the House, TSAHC's podcast for everything housing related these days. We have a very special segment today. I know I say that at the beginning of all the segments, and that's because all of our segments are special, but this one's a little extra special for me and for everybody here at TSAHC. And it's because we're celebrating 30 years as an organization. And we brought in a VIP guest, Mr. David Long, the president of the Texas State Affordable Housing Corporation, who's going to tell us a little bit about the history of this place. And I've been here for almost 11 years. Here at TSAHC, we have people who have very long tenures, people who have been here longer than me, more than 20 years. And I feel like this is going to be a learning journey for everyone, not whether you're working this office or whether you're one of our external partners that we work with or whether you just know about us in general. Not everybody knows the story of TSAHC, and if we do know it, we don't know it probably that well. So we're going to go through the brief history of TSAHC today and find a little bit more about this from someone who's been here almost since the beginning, and that's David Long. And just want to welcome you to the podcast. It's exciting to have you on here. I'm really excited about this.
Well, thank you. I've never been on it, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
But you have watched them or listened to most of them.
Watch every one of them.
Very familiar with the content that we put out.
Yeah, every one of them. They're always very good. Well done.
And having said that, you can assure us that this is going to be the best, right?
The very best.
Okay. Well, then let's just start at the beginning.
Okay.
Take us back to the late 90s, whenever, before TSAHC had been established, and maybe some of the conversations surrounding housing at that time and why they were looking at creating an entity like ours. And I know that it, especially in the early days, went through a permutation into how it exists today. So just start us as early as you can and sort of the genesis of the corporation and how it got kicked off.
Essentially, the corporation was created by the state of Texas as a means to acquire foreclosed properties under colonias and utilizing the corporation at the time a 501c3 nonprofit to assist the homeowners in those properties to convert from contract for deed to deed of trust. And that was the initial premise behind why the corporation was created, was a way to facilitate at the state level to assist home buyers or people who wanted to be home buyers in their process of getting through that in a what I consider to be a fraudulent process, which was the contract for.
Sure. For those who aren't familiar, can you help us understand first what a colonia is, and then also the contract for deed arrangement?
Certainly. Colonia is essentially, by definition, is an unincorporated community. It doesn't have any infrastructure. It's not zoned, and it is essentially a place where a developer can go in and sell lots for home ownership. The contract for deed model is one where the borrower does not receive a title or a deed of trust. What they do is they receive a contract, and that contract allows them to live there and pay off that contract amount over a period of time. The problem with it is that if there is ever a default under that contract, the developer owner at the time can basically restart the contract from the very beginning and start all over. So you might pay on that contract for 30 years and never own it, because if in the middle of that you've had a default, they've started you over in the entire process. And that was the formality that really was egregious and that they wanted to correct. And so at the two that we started with were in the Valley, and the developer went bankrupt, and the corporation was able to, through the state, was able to acquire those through bankruptcy court, and we then helped the borrowers at the time convert from contract for deed to deed of trust as they move through the process.
Sure. So let's assume this was a traditional mortgage, or just to compare it to a traditional mortgage. So I'm making my payments for 20 years on a house, and every month I get my statement. I know how much is going to the principal. That's essentially the equity that I'm building the house.
Right.
And then my mortgage servicer, let's say I miss a payment in the 21st year, if they were doing a contract for deed equivalent, they could say, oh, you got to start all over again.
Correct.
And basically start from month one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the details of each contract, but that's essentially the premise behind it.
Okay. And then, so that's what TSAHC was first established to do.
Mhm.
And then what happened after that?
In 2001, actually 1999, the corporation was asked to kind of be a standalone entity. And we became a standalone entity, and the board at the time was a shared board between a state agency and the corporation as they separated. And then in 2001, the corporation received its first bonding allocation to create a single-family bond program for teachers in the state of Texas, people teaching in the public school system. And that's kind of where it came from, and that's when I actually started at the corporation, was in 2001. I was asked to come on board to create that program in the single-family arena.
No, that's great. So one of our most popular programs
Yep.
was one of the first ones that was launched.
Yeah.
Okay. What were you doing before that?
I had been in banking for 10 years, and I had worked for the state of Texas for about 11 or 12 years.
Okay. And you've been here ever since?
Been here ever since. It'll be 24 years in October.
Congratulations. And early congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a pretty impressive tenure for anyone. But like I said, it's not uncommon around these parts. We actually have people who've been here longer than that.
That's true.
And so my guess is, since the duties, responsibilities, programs of TSAHC have grown over the years, especially from its early days, my assumption is the mission has changed over the years. I know that we've been involved in sort of the recrafting of the mission very recently, as recently as a couple of years ago. How has that mission evolved, sort of from when we were first established, helping out colonias and then doing the teacher home buying program, to today?
I would say first that the mission really hasn't changed. It's just been updated in the sense that our mission has always been to provide affordable housing. That's the key to who we are and what we do. What has changed and updated is the idea of how we're able to do that. And that has evolved and expanded to be not only where we provide borrowers the opportunity to become homeowners through our single-family programs. We provide bond financing for multifamily transactions that we do a lot of. We also now have the ability to provide funding to developers who want to develop. So we have loan programs to fill the need for a developer who's looking to create their own program for funding to develop housing. We are able to provide grant funds out to other nonprofits, so we facilitate capacity building as well as the ability of those nonprofits to grow housing across the state of Texas. And we as an organization have grown in the staff size. When I first started, there were 11 people, and we are now, I think, at 32. So we've gotten bigger in the way in the size, but also in what we're able to do capacity-wise from the standpoint of funding and what we're able to serve across the state of Texas. The other thing I would add is that in our ability to do all of that, we've brought a lot of our resources that we were using outside the office, we brought it in-house. So we control our own programs a little bit more in depth. And one of the programs I would mention would be the single family. When we did single family, I was the person who oversaw the issuance of bonds, but we had the single family compliance and the underwriting and all that was done outside, and now the compliance is done internally. We also outsourced our mortgage credit certificate program, MCC program, and that's now done internally. So it's given us the opportunity to not only be in control of what we do, but also to make sure that we're providing the best products possible to the people of Texas.
Sure, and identify efficiencies along the way, whatever
Certainly.
makes most sense from a fiscal standpoint,
Right.
all of that. It seems like while we're classified as a nonprofit, we tend to kind of operate with the bottom line
Yeah.
considerations in mind.
Right.
And while it's impressive that the organization has grown 3 times its size since you got here, still extraordinarily lean to be serving a state as big as Texas with just 32 people in one physical location.
Most definitely. I think that's one of the things I'm most prideful of is the idea that we as an organization are very efficient with the resources that we have, and we don't receive any funding from the state of Texas. We receive our bonding authority from the state of Texas, but we also don't receive any capital resources from the state of Texas. As a result, we basically have to be very efficient and we have to be very frugal in what we do. But as a result of that, we've been able to become very much in control of what we have, and I think we do an excellent job of it. And I think part of that is the fact that the staff that are here are very experienced, they're very knowledgeable, And we've been very blessed to have a lot of the staff, as you mentioned early on in the podcast, a lot of the staff have been here 10 years or more. And that institutional knowledge and experience has really allowed us to be quite efficient, as well as be able to grow with the expansion of programs as they have expanded and the needs have changed across the state of Texas.
Sure. So I want to get back to the teacher home buying program. That seems like a pretty significant milestone, probably the most significant milestone early on in TSAHC's history. What other milestones kind of jump out at you over the past 30 years that you think are most significant?
I think it always is the idea that our programs have grown over the years. The teacher program started off as just a small allocation of bonding authority from the state of Texas. In the last several years, it's now in the billions of dollars that we offer in terms of the originations that we do. I don't know that that's not all bonding authority. It's done through some other resources, but at the same time, we are meeting that need across the state of Texas. But more importantly is that program is no longer just the teachers program. It's called the Heroes Home Loan Program. And as a result, we serve a variety of professions under that, including teachers, firefighters, law enforcement, first responders, veterans, and a variety of other people. It's a well-used, demanded program, and as a result, we're very pleased to know that we are able to reach quite a few people across the state of Texas in that annually. And I think we're one of the largest issuers of single-family mortgages across the state from the nonprofit standpoint. And so that's a big milestone for me to know that we met. The other thing I really like is that we are able to, with our capital resources, we're able to give back. We are able to rent some of our facilities to nonprofits, which allows them a chance to put more of their resources towards programs instead of overhead, and we're able to do that because we own those buildings. The other thing is that we have our Foundations Fund program, which was created in 2008, and that program has become one of my favorite programs because we're able to use our own resources, dictate how those resources go out, and we are serving more and more nonprofits every year with that program. And I'm just really excited to know that that program has continued to grow over the years, and our board has been so supportive in continuing to allow the allocation that we make every year available to grow that program over the years.
Yes, and credit to you and also the board for championing that program and also making sure that the funds are distributed in what I think is a very judicious, efficient manner. We're making sure that there's geographic representation
Most definitely.
from across the state, and we continue to work with more and more nonprofits through
Right.
that. Can't say enough great things about the Texas Foundations Fund. I'm glad you mentioned that. Definitely one of the more significant milestones for this organization. We live in interesting times ever since COVID, I would say, and even prior to that. And some of these interesting times tend to have economic considerations that come with them, and then also sort of impacts to the housing market. We are definitely living in sort of an uncertain home buying market currently, not necessarily an uncertain interest rate environment, but one where we kind of have ups and downs. And I'm assuming whenever you first started TSAHC, we might have had double-digit interest rates at the time, or maybe not too far behind that. But what I'm getting at is that there are a lot of roller coaster moments when it comes to either the economy or the home buying market, and sometimes more traditional agencies can sort of be static in how they respond to that and not dynamic. But one thing that has really impressed me about TSAHC is how we can dynamically respond to changing economic conditions, and especially when it comes to the housing market. Can you kind of touch on that, on how we've been responsive to sort of the changing economic landscape over the years, especially when it comes to the home buying market?
Certainly, and I'll go back and kind of just give you a little, insight. When I first started, the first program that I issued under the teachers program, our interest rate was 7.25%, which at the time just seemed astronomically high. But our programs have always offered, in the single family side, have always offered some form of down payment assistance, which is really still the biggest hurdle for home buyers to be able to achieve home ownership. And so we always have wanted to ensure that there is some form of down payment assistance to bring that burden a little bit less to the borrowers and more onto the ability for us to help serve them. The market changes. I think the unique thing about TSAHC is that we are very flexible and versatile, and that we can move and be able to adjust as the economy goes along. One of the things that we can do with our single-family programs is we're able to adjust the interest rate as we go along with the market rate. We're able to continue to offer down payment assistance, but we're also, because of our programs that we offer, not just in the single-family but in the multifamily, we can adjust how we apply our resources to those areas. And some of the things I would mention is when there was an opportunity for us to acquire housing that had been foreclosed on across the state, corporation found a neat way for us to acquire some of those foreclosures through a pool of homes that were being foreclosed and bring those in-house, use those to a land bank, and offer those back out to our developer partners for them to convert and redevelop those properties and sell them back out for affordable housing. That was something that we were able to do that I thought was really a neat property acquisition process, and it gave us the opportunity to continue to serve the affordable housing needs of Texas. Another thing we're able to do was in that same arena where there were foreclosures, we gave away 10 homes to veterans in the process, working with our development partners and our financial partners, knowing that they were willing to support the idea that we would rehab these houses. We would get the homes either donated or buy them at a significant discount. We would get those homes, have them rehabbed, and then we would do a donation to a veteran who had met certain standards in order to be eligible for the donation. Those are all just really, really exciting opportunities for us to do that. And the other thing that I would say we've done is we've talked about is we've enhanced our ability to serve with our capital resources developers as they've found needs to kind of keep, if you will, access to capital cheaper, because we have capital that we can deploy, and we've kept that capital cheap enough to make it more affordable for developers to continue to provide affordable housing across the state, whether it be in single family or multifamily.
Sure. Yeah, I think you hit on all the things that I had thought of as I've been exposed to sort of our programs and everything that we do in house, and definitely touched on some of the more dynamic ways we've responded to changing economic conditions. So I really appreciate your thoughtfulness surrounding that. I'll also say that another thing that really stands out at TSAHC is we have an environment that not only encourages, but it fosters innovative and unique approaches to housing solutions. And it's an environment where no matter the idea or concept that you have, you never are afraid that it's going to be shot down. Somebody say, "Oh, that's outlandish. It would never." People really kind of work through your ideas, and then some of them kind of turn into programs or initiatives. Can you speak to that a little bit about how you feel like this is a culture that inspires and encourages that sort of innovation, how we can have new solutions to some of housing challenges?
Certainly, yeah. And first, let me just say thank you for the question, because I think it's a really kind of broad but eye-opening concept, and that is that this is a huge industry with a very unique set of partners who want to focus on affordable housing, and that is a very unique market to focus on. It's not always about the profit margin. It's more about who you're serving and how you'll be able to serve them and meeting the affordability needs. Texas is unique in that for the longest time, most of my career in the affordable housing arena, Texas was always in a very affordable state to live in. It had access to housing that was always affordable. And over the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen that kind of be really hit hard, and the affordability seems to be waning a little bit. But in the process of looking at ways that we can continue to do that, I think one of the things you have to rely on is the idea and the open environment that we use with our staff here, as well as the partnerships and the collaborations that we use in order to bring new ideas to the table, as well as the idea of being able to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel, but also working from ideas that have been successful elsewhere, whether it be at the state of Texas or across the country, and trying to deploy those same ideas and maybe just fit them into what makes it work for us. But the staff at TSAHC have always been very creative. It's one of the reasons I like being here, and I like the staff that we have, because we're always able to kind of collaborate. We may not always agree, but at the same time, we can come back to the solution, which is our goal is to serve those that we're supposed to serve in the state of Texas through the affordable housing needs that they have.
Sure. I want to expand on something that you said, because it's a good lead in into the next question, and that's about partnerships. And when it comes to cultural identity, I often have a hard time pinpointing, is it the culture that sort of grew organically that fosters collaboration and kind of some of the things that you spoke of? Or is it sort of the culture that's instilled by leadership? And when it comes to partnerships, that's definitely a leadership sort of creating that culture, and it's from you. It's something that I didn't appreciate enough until I came over here, and that's this notion that we can't do this work alone, that you're only going to be successful if you reach out and rely upon partners who are in the space. It allows you to not avoid, recreating the wheel or things like that, but
Right.
also it's just a power and numbers thing. And you've definitely ingrained that within all of us, and the ethos of TSAC is to really um, understand and rely on those partnerships, because it's an important component of the work we do. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Certainly. First and foremost, thanks for your thoughts that I somehow or another created that environment. I will tell you, throughout my career, I've always believed that partnerships are the only way to get things done. And whether that's because you're utilizing that partner as an idea person, someone to support you, or someone to share in the experience, or it's opportunity for us to have them bring resources to the table, whether it be knowledge or financial or whatever it is. But there's 30, as I mentioned earlier, there's 32 of us here in the office. We work in one of the largest states in the country. We have 254 counties, and there's absolutely no way that we can be everywhere to serve all those needs. So we rely on our partners. On the multifamily side, we have developer partners that we've established through our development finance team. They are exceptional partners. We work with them on a variety of ways. We have our professionals that we work with that ensure that our products that we put out are viable, financially stable, and meet the needs and thresholds for investment policies. And then we have in our single family programs, we have all of our partners that work on that. And the big part of that is the lenders and the realtors that we work with. We have great relationships with the Texas Association of Realtors, with the Mortgage Bankers Association, and with the lender organizations across the state. They are a huge part of our ability to market our programs. They are a big part of making sure that we have, if you will, our pulse on what's going on across the state. And as you mentioned in one of your earlier questions, our ability to kind of move as things change, and knowing what's coming up or basing on those communications that we get from those partners, we can kind of see what's coming and maybe adjust in advance of that to make sure that we have our best foot forward as we move into making those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. Um, I want you to think about the past 25 years here. You've mentioned at least one program that's near and dear to your heart, Texas Foundations Fund. But thinking about David Long specifically, what what programs, initiatives, any random thing that we've done over those past 25 years, you personally, what are you most proud of?
Well, I have to say, probably the thing that jumps out at me, besides the Foundation Fund, which, as I mentioned earlier, is my favorite program we do, not because I had a whole lot to making sure that that is what it is, but I've watched it grow over the years, and I've been supportive of funding it and making sure that it's, continuing to grow and serve as many nonprofits as possible. But it's a single family program. It's what I came over here to start with. It's what I do. I still participate in the morning pricing. I've loved the fact that it's grown from being, $25 million allocation from the state of Texas to where, in 2021, we just did under $5 billion in volume for a variety of our single family programs. I know that's come down with the change in interest rates and kind of the affordability issues that we addressed earlier, but we continue to have a huge demand in that program. And so it's probably one of my favorite programs. One that kind of aligns with that, but it isn't something that we talk a lot about, and we've not even mentioned it today, is financial literacy. I am extremely supportive and a huge advocate for financial literacy all the way into the middle school area. I think if you're talking about people becoming homeowners, starting early sounds silly when you're talking about a 12 or a 13-year-old. But when you consider what type of resources they're going to be looking at, the hurdles they're going to have to get to, and what's required to become a homeowner, whether it be credit, whether it be debt, whether all the things that you have to do starting early. And so financial literacy is a huge issue for me, and I'm a very, very strong advocate and supporter of that. And the corporation has done a phenomenal job of doing the Train the Trainer program, our financial toolbox, all the things that we do in association with working with our lenders and our realtors and training them about our programs. working with housing counselors, all those things that we do just is extremely important. And I think that's probably one of the unsung programs that we do and that we participate in, that we fund personally, that we work with our partners. We get a lot of support from. You can see how important it is in the sense that we get a lot of fundraising that gets submitted in support of that. And I think it's the partnerships that we talked about earlier, a lot of that comes from them supporting that financially. And I just think it says a lot about how important it is to a lot of people. And it is just ultimately, in my opinion, the catalyst for people becoming homeowners.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I probably because we're in housing, we don't spend enough time talking about financial literacy as much as we should, even though it's an important cornerstone of being a successful homeowner or successful anything. It's understanding your own finances. And we also communicate sort of some of the negative effects of poor housing during childhood and early adult years, and the educational outcomes that can be impacted, sort of your health outcomes that can be impacted if you don't have quality housing. We don't really talk about some of the consequences of poor financial literacy. And if you're a kid growing up in a substandard house, you don't really have agency over that, and until you have an opportunity to live out on your own. But you sort of do have agency over your finances at an early age, 12, 13,
Right.
14 into high school, especially if you get a high school job. And the consequences of having poor housing, you can fix that. You can move to another place eventually. You can move on your own. The consequences of making poor financial decisions can last with you for
Your
years.
lifetime.
Yeah, your lifetime into adulthood or whatever. And to the extent that we can help address that at an earlier age and intervene as soon as possible, I think is critically important. And it also feels like you very much believe in sort of the American dream still of if you work hard enough, you should be able to purchase a house of your own. And maybe that's not your forever home, maybe it is. But every American sort of being afforded that opportunity to get a good paying job and to be able to purchase a house just by having, a good paying job, or two good paying jobs in the household. Do you think that's accurate? Is that really reflective of what you most strongly believe in?
Without a doubt. Let me just say this, that there are several programs. I heard somebody mention the other day that the American dream is no longer owning a home, but just having a home where you can live and call it a home. And there's some programs out there that are, not that I dislike them. I think there are opportunities for people to have solid rental housing, whether it be a single family, standalone, or apartment. And there's some programs out there. But I am a huge believer that if you are going to provide health and wealth for a individual in the United States, in Texas specifically, let's just talk about the state we live in, that homeownership is the key to that. It is a way to build generational wealth. You mentioned earlier, and I'll concur with you on this, it is a huge safety net for a lot of the children who are going to school. If they have a safe, sound home that they can call their place to go to after school, when they leave from school, they know that that's going to be something they can come home to. There are all kinds of studies talk about the health of people who live in a house that they know is safe and sound. So I think, yes, home ownership is the goal. I'm not saying everybody, let me put it this way. Everybody has the right to own a home. Not everybody's ready to own a home.
Sure.
And so what I like seeing is the stair-step model. And that usually is going to be rental to your starter home, and then graduating up as you financially can do so. But along the way, you've always got housing. And that housing stability is essential to me for family stability. And I'm a big supporter of family first. I've always been that way. You guys know that around the office. I'm a big supporter of that with the staff. And I think that really comes from my thought that homeownership is the key to a lot of things, including the success financially in the United States.
Yeah, well, as someone who's a fan of the stair-step model, there were a couple additional steps for me, and that's like, can you take care of a plant? Okay, can you pay a cell phone bill?
Yeah.
All right, now maybe you're ready to sign a lease.
Well, that goes back to the financial literacy component.
Yeah, exactly. So people's stairs start out at different steps. That's
I
all I'm saying.
understand.
Some of us take a little bit more work. This next question, I feel like I could ask anyone, because the more we talk about housing and affordable housing as a community, I think the more people learn about it and their perception of it changes over time and their understanding of it changes over time, depending on where you grew up or sort of what housing you were exposed to as a child or a young adult or as a professional. How has your perspective on affordable housing changed throughout your time here?
I guess my idea of affordable housing has always been the idea that it's a house you can afford. I know that sounds simple and maybe a little lack in response to your question.
No, I think that's perfect.
But
I've heard
the
that
idea
before.
of affordable housing is, a lot of people felt, like affordable housing means it's bad for a neighborhood because it means the type of person that will live there or whatever. And I think very few people have been able to say that their first house was, their forever home. My wife and I have had 4 or 5 homes in our lifetime. Each one of them was a step up through the stair-step process. And we started in rental housing, and we grew to where we are now. And I think everybody has that right to that opportunity to be able to do that. The idea of what I think is affordable literally is the idea that we have to be able to allow people to afford where they live, and so that it's not a burden on them while they live there. So the affordability component is not just whether or not, if you're talking about home ownership, it's not just because you can make your payment and your taxes and insurance on it, but the 4 walls are just a part of that. The rest comes into if you have a family, if you have children, if it's two individuals or it's just you individually, that you have to be able to meet the needs of your lifestyle as well as that. And the process in doing that means that you have to be able to take all those expenses and still be able to live in the house you're in. And you shouldn't be house poor in the process where you live in a house but you can't afford to do anything else. I think that's unfortunate. So these programs that we offer not only try and qualify borrowers to be homeowners and allow them the opportunity to understand their finances, the financial literacy that we require they complete before they own a home or through our programs. It's the resources that we try and deploy to help them, whether it be down payment assistance, the financial literacy that we offer, and as well as the lenders educating them on what it means to be a homeowner. We have an opportunity, and quite honestly, we have a responsibility to be the people that put people in homes to be successful homeowners, not just homeowners. And so for me, affordability means that I've made someone, given them the resources from a financial standpoint to be a successful homeowner, not just be a homeowner, because it doesn't do me any good to put somebody in a home and 3 years later find out that they're no longer in that home because they couldn't afford to live there.
Absolutely. I think we often get caught up in this conversation about the capital A affordable housing, and that's the income restricted units.
Yes.
And how many 80% median family income units are you building in this complex? And what's the rent going to be? And we're thinking way too much about these units and the rents attached to them or the house and the price attached to it. We're thinking about the cost of the house exclusively, and we're thinking about it to the exclusion of, can you live affordably?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Are you living in your house affordably as
Right.
opposed to, is it an affordable product?
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of consensus around the end goal for policymakers, for people in this industry, for the public at large, is just for everybody to have the opportunity to where after they pay their rent or their mortgage, they're not thinking about, can I still keep the lights on? Can I get quality food on the table for my family if I have a family? Can I afford childcare if I have children? Can I pay my student loan debt if I had student loans? How can I meet the obligations of my household and not stress about how much it costs to live?
Correct. And we need, a lot of my comments just a second ago, Michael, were about the idea of home ownership. It's the same for rental property, whether you're in an apartment complex or a standalone home and you're renting it. It's the same premise that it's only affordable to you if you can meet the threshold of what you just described, which is it's not just that you're able to pay your rent, but you're able to live there and not get up every morning worried about where you're going to be able to pay for the groceries that you got to put on the table, turn the lights on, heat your house, all those things, and still be able to get to and from work because you have gas money. It's an important component of beyond the affordability of a house, whether that be rental or home ownership. It's
Sure.
all the pieces that make that house your home.
Absolutely. We've taken a step back. That's all we've done is just look back. I want to look forward a little bit. And as we look to the future, what do you think are challenges or opportunities that you foresee in housing in general in Texas?
I think in Texas is going to be the affordability issue. The idea that Texas is one of the fastest growing population states in the country, which means there's higher demand, which means prices are higher. Most anybody that's in the industry will tell you that their value of their house has gone up. I think the other thing is the financial market that we're in, the economics of what makes mortgages affordable, the rental cost affordable. If you're a developer, you got to build it, and you've got to be able to sustain the financial feasibility of a multifamily property. So interest rate is huge. I think the economy itself is going to drive a lot of those. And in Texas, we have some changes that have been made at the state legislature, allowing for the tax exemptions related to homestead and some other things that are making that a little bit easier on those that already own a home or looking to own a home. Property taxes have always been a big burden, but I think they're making some efforts there. So in terms of things that we have to work on, where the challenges, I think it's going to be just finding ways that we can continue to create affordability for housing in Texas and working with the resources that we have, working with our partners, and identifying how we can best come together to meet those challenges.
Sure, absolutely. I only have a couple more questions.
Sure. Fine.
This is going great, though. Really appreciate it again to have you on here. This next question I'm going to ask you is one that I get all the time, and it's from funders, it's from partners that we work with, policymakers, friends, it's from strangers, everyone who they find out what I'm doing, and they have a vested interest in affordable housing on a personal level, but they always feel like it's this complex issue that they can't wrap their head around.
Right.
Whether how to build, what it costs to build, how to make it cheaper, just this complex labyrinth that they don't know how to navigate in their head. But they want to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to make a difference in housing, and they want to be a part of the solution, and they're eager for feedback. What do you tell someone if they walk up to you and maybe you don't know them and you tell them you work in housing? Say, oh, I care about housing in my community. I just don't know what to do. What's your advice to them?
I guess the first thing I would advise is to tell me what it is they're interested in. It would be a question is to ask them what it is they're interested in doing and what they want to bring their resources to bear, whether they have an interest, they have funds that they want to bring to the table, if they just have an idea they want to bring to the table. And then the other thing would be to come sit down with us and just talk to us and see what we can do. We may not be the right fit, but we certainly have a lot of people here in the office who have great partnerships and collaborations that somebody else might be able to help them with. The idea about affordable housing really comes from the heart, and you have to be able to understand also then that if you're going to get involved in the affordable housing arena, you're not here for the big profit, you're here for the financial feasibility of it, and there might be some resources that you can take away from it, but really it's more about a thought process that you go through, that you're going to try and assist in the process of creating affordable housing, not because of the profit margins, but because of your idea that you want to put affordable housing on the ground and serve the people of the state of Texas. My idea in terms of what I tell them is, again, just sit down with us and let's talk, and we're happy to listen to what ideas you might have and what resources, and we can either talk through how we can help you deploy that, or we can help you identify where you can best deploy it with someone other than us.
In that latter point is, I think, it's something that it's probably not unique to TSAHC, but definitely a point of emphasis that we are not gatekeepers. If you walk into our office and you sit down with us and it's not a good fit, we are going to provide you direction on where to go and to where to take your idea. I really admire that about this industry by and large, is that everybody is looking to build each other up and for everybody to be successful at the end of the day. Lastly, if there's one message you would like to convey about TSAHC that you think people might not know, what would it be?
I guess that we have an open door. I mean, we're really an organization. We're 30 years old now. We've been around and we've seen a lot happen. And a lot of the staff here, as I mentioned earlier, have been here a long time. I think we're an open door. We're a great resource. We're a great opportunity for listening as well as partnering, and that we have a lot of ideas that we'd like to share and be able to collaborate on. But that our open door policy allows us to be both a leader in the process and also a participant in the process. And I want people to know that we are a organization who really does want to listen, but that we also have a mission. And our mission is something that we very much focus on, and it is what we are all about, and that we will continue to use that as our primary force behind what we do and where we head down the future.
Well, that's reflective of your own personal work style as well, the open door policy.
Correct.
And I know that everybody's appreciative of that. It extends to our partners in the community across the state, open door policy, and also it extends to Mr. Long's office here at TSAHC. So we all like that. Again, I really appreciate your time. If we do this again in 30 years, do you think you'll join us?
Sure, happy to. Of course, I might not be around, but I try. If I'm here, I crawl in and sit down.
We'll interview the AI version of David.
There you
Long.
go. By then, there probably will be me in an AI form.
Well, appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Congrats on your tenure here, and I know it's anytime we have milestone birthdays around here, it's a little bit celebratory. Even though 30 years is not a big milestone, but it's an important one nonetheless. So,
Yeah.
And it's a huge milestone to have you joining us on the podcast. I can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate it. And I would add one last thing, and I know this is something for anybody that's watching or listening. The corporation puts out these On the House podcasts on a regular basis, and I encourage people to go back and listen to those. There's a lot of really good information. I do listen to every one of them, or I go read the information that's posted on those podcasts, and the information that's provided is always very excellent information. So very timely, as a matter of fact. It's very poignant to the situation that's going on in the industry. So I would advise people to do that. But thank you for the time. Appreciate being on, and like my first time, so I hope I did okay.
Absolutely. Thanks, David.
You bet.